Are you noticing changes in our country you find troubling? Do you feel unsafe and at a loss to remedy these fundamental shifts? Have you found the book Go Free by Jason Kuna? The Go Free method provides excellent meme curatives and specific language skills to overcome the anti-white psychological warfare being waged against us across the West. Go Free, a guide to aligning with the archetype of Western kind by Jason Kuna, available on Amazon.
Our children are priceless, and we would do anything to protect them. So why aren't you using Go Free to protect them from the most harmful ideas? Decades in the making, Go Free is a simple yet brilliant practice designed to free us from destructive socio-political ideas. As words are the tools with which we think, Go Free promotes precise, simple, and targeted language to counteract psychological warfare. When you go free of the system's control over your word choice, you liberate your thinking. As you grow, you can empower others. And the most important thing you can do is inoculate our children against the ideas that are meant to harm them.
Honestly, I feel like I'm working more now than I did when I worked. Odd as that sounds.
I feel like that would be me as well when I get to that stage. I feel like with our biospirit and our white well-being, we just always have to have a purpose, and if we become dormant and sedentary, is when and I don't know how some of these people fail. Like I look at my fellow white man, and I see him homeless and et cetera. I don't understand it. Like I don't know whether it's a drug or whatever the issue is. It's just I don't personally understand it. Coming from the battles I fought to get where I am today, and to just throw it away for, a drug, a pill, a line, whatever the circumstances, it just really disappoints me. And it's also, hard to understand. But yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Mrs. came in. So I didn't catch all of that, but I did catch most of it. I do think, you know, when we are dealing with so much anti-whiteism as we are, it's not, it shouldn't be too surprising to see some of us fail. Sometimes it can be for reasons not related to anti-whiteism, but I think very often when you dig deep enough, you can trace it to anti-whiteism, whether it's not getting the better job because of being white, being passed over for the quote unquote diversity hire, which we know in this community just means an anti-white hire. Sometimes but the school that doesn't accept you, uh, limiting your education can have implications much further down the road. Now, I come from a STEM field, which thankfully at the present is still fairly dominated by white men. But of course, there's a lot of fields that white men are discouraged and outright excluded from these days by anti-whites. So certainly their success in the long term is going to be affected by that.
I 100% agree that anti-whiteism has been a major driving factor in that. Some of these individuals are feeling guilty for being white, and for having some of the privileges that come with. And I don't even think there is such a thing as white privilege. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back. I think there is a white privilege, and it's not in the way that they are depicting it. I think it's in the way of, like, we have it in our genetics, it's in our biospirit, it's in our whole, ancestry of just good moral characters and good people in our bloodline that have instilled this through generations onto, if I may, I just want to put it bluntly, not be a piece of shit. You know what I mean? It's just built in us.
Yeah, I mean, that is the Western biospirit. We strive for greatness. We, even as individuals, it seems, even in the minor things that we do, if we sweep a floor, we want every speck of the floor to be clean, because that's our biospirit, is to do good work. And I think that is why we have cranked out so many wonderful and amazing men of the West, who are always interested in finding out more, learning more about our world, and willing to risk their lives to discover new things about our world. I think, of the Apollo astronauts, how scared shitless they were, but they still went, because somebody had to. Doing things that at the time were probably considered by most to be absolutely insane. Benjamin is here. Innocent guinea pig is here. I used to have guinea pigs. Such beautiful little pets. And Mr. Biospirit has joined us. Good afternoon, Biospirit. How are you?
I'm doing well. I actually had a pet guinea pig named Matilda, who was a very cute little thing until she decided to reach outside of her cage, and she ate a big hole in my mother's drapes, and then, and then Matilda had to go. So that was the end of my guinea pig era. I just want to let you know I have some dental work I'm going to have done later, so I'm just going to be here for about an hour.
Sounds good, sir. And best wishes on your dental work. May it all come out straight, and hopefully you have a competent dentist. I did send an invite out to Hans. I assume he's tied up with something, otherwise he would be here. But without, we shall get rolling. So welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Shade Tree, White Wellbeing NWG space. We hold this space every day at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on X. We are a no white guilt community that meets to practice the concepts and lexicon developed by Jason Kuna, Mr. No White Guilt. You can find him here on X as at No White Guilt NWG. On YouTube and elsewhere is simply No White Guilt, and on the web at nowhiteguilt.org. We discuss a wide variety of topics of interest to white people everywhere and look for ways to apply solutions. I'm the Tree Godfather, your host, and my co-host today is, well, nobody at the moment. We do run pretty casual here, but I ask that you raise your hand if you'd like to jump in at random. Otherwise, I generally call on speakers in turn for their thoughts. If you would like to hop into the conversation, just request a mic and we'll get you set up. We only ask that you comport yourself as much as possible to the Go Free lexicon and act like a proper lady or gentleman of the West as applicable. Let's go. As I'm going to be tied up reading for a few minutes, I'm going to ask if anybody has any pressing business they want to address now before I get started. All right, seeing no hands. So, in kind of keeping with the theme this week, we have yet another great man of the West, known for his poetry, who will be named after I read a couple of his works. These are short enough to where review them. And I get a feeling at least one person here is going to recognize perhaps some of these. So, two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent into the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing the way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And I'll read off one more here. Whose woods are these? I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer. Stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Those are the great poems of, let's see who has the answer, Mr. New Hampshire Patriot.
The great Robert Frost.
We have a winner.
Wow.
They are.
It's funny. Yeah, no, he's a very great poet. Ever since you started mentioning these poets, these great Western poets, I've started to read a little more, and it's funny. The poem you just read was one I read last night.
I find business, again, these are our culture. These men are ours. We need to take ownership of them and appreciate them. And their art is our art. It aligns with our biospirit. And there's a lot of our culture that is kind of vilified today, whether it's classical music, opera. Those are the kind of things that the younger people are taught are for old people, or they're gross, or that's not culture, but those are all incorrect. These are the things that we create that we should absolutely celebrate. My friend, Mr. Biospirit.
Well, I was glad to see that you picked Mr. Frost today because New Hampshire Patriot has been wanting it to be Mr. Frost for 3 days now. So those are very, very well-known poems, and it was nice to hear them again.
Yeah, I read a lot of those when I was a young lad and hadn't thought about it in quite a long time, ironically. And then as we get into this series, it all started coming back to me, and uh, I guess as you get older, perhaps you get a little bit more appreciation for the culture that perhaps as a younger person you thought wasn't quite so cool. So, Mr. Robert Lee Frost, Was born in 1874, and he lived until 1963. An American poet known for his realistic depictions of rural life and his command of American colloquial speech. Frost frequently wrote about settings from rural life in New England, something I, of course, can relate a hell of a lot to in the early 20th century, using them to examine complex social and philosophical themes. So he says he was born in San Francisco, California, and it has a history kind of like New Hampshire Patriot. He passed away at 88 in Boston, Massachusetts. So he's another coast to coast transplant. So frequently honored during his lifetime, Frost is the only poet to receive 4 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry. He became one of America's rare public literary figures, almost an artistic institution. Appointed United States Poet Laureate in 1958, he also received the Congressional Gold Medal in 1960, and in 1961 was named Poet Laureate of Vermont. Randall Jarrett wrote, Robert Frost, along with Stevens and Eliot, seems to me the greatest of the American poets of this century. Frost's virtues are extraordinary. No other living poet has written so well about the actions of ordinary men. His wonderful dramatic monologues or dramatic scenes come out of a knowledge of people that few poets have had, and they are written in a verse that uses, sometimes with absolute mastery, the rhythms of actual speech. And I'm going to grab the link and put this up in the comments so that we can all share the anti-white Wikipedia link, which again we hate to use, but well, we use what we have. And there's a little bit more of his biography there, as well as in the second link I'm going to drop up in there, and that is a list of some of his more well-known poems. Mr. New Hampshire Patriot.
Thank you for the mic. Yeah, I'd also like to reiterate what I think I've stated multiple times this week when you mentioned these artists, if you will. We have a distinct connection with nature, so we are also able to translate it in a way to where like you can feel it, you like you're there, and it's just an amazing feeling, and again, a great Westman, and I'll end there.
Yeah, indeed. It does seem to be the common theme that um, any form of art or even science that grounds us in nature, whether it's poetry about nature and the woods, art that reflects being out in the woods, it all seems to come back to the same. We are a very earthly grounded people, I believe. Um, quite quite home out in the middle of nowhere. And it seems to reflect our biosphere at best. And when you look back at our history, uh, where it's relatively isolated pockets of people, that kind of makes much more sense, I guess. Um, we have a long history of being able to survive in wide climates that other peoples don't do so well at. And I do believe that's because of our long-standing history of being survivors out in the woods that keeps us so grounded. I think I would not be surprised if it was one of our direct ancestors that originally tamed the first wolf and put the domestic dog on the map for our purposes. Odd as that may sound. Mr. Biosphere, any thoughts?
I was actually surprised at when he was born and how long he lived and where his age fell in time, because I always thought that he was born much later. I had him completely out of context. And I also didn't know that he was born in my own hometown. I thought he was from the East Coast, so that's all very interesting. He certainly is, I would say, one of the most famous poets in America. So there are very few people who would not know who Robert Frost is.
Indeed, he seems like he certainly got around quite a bit too. Uh, and of course, these are the poets that have that kind of background seem to be the ones that are the most popular, perhaps because they have such wide life experiences that they can translate that into the poetry that we enjoy. Oh, the Blue Flame has arrived. Good to see you. Stoppa Anti-Vitism is here. David is here. Robert is also here, as well as 8 people on YouTube that I can't quite make out except for Hyperborean Dream. Good to see all of you. Mr. New Hampshire Patriot, anything else you'd like to add on poetry?
No, sir.
Mr. Biospirit, same question.
Afraid not. We're not the chatty Cathys today, I guess.
Pardon the silence as I drag through my bookmarks to get a couple of things stuck up here. To the far left is the post I put up earlier. I know you saw it, Biospirit, because I think you reposted it. So I was watching the Law of Self-Defense channel, as I do, and one of the graphics that Andrew Branca had thrown up had to do with Canada's MAID program, and this was apparently it was a picture of a poster, very very obviously targeted towards teens. And I noticed the first thing I noticed, of course, is it was a white teen shown on the poster, and so just now this is probably not news to a lot of people, but to me this was something interesting. I went through and looked at the Canada's MAID website, and wouldn't you know, it seems like all the pictures of people lined up to commit suicide, they're all white. This, of course, I find to be troubling and very anti-white suggestive. Mr. David.
Hey guys, I was just feeling like maybe just sharing a few little thoughts about that poem with the fork in the road path, if that's okay.
We can do that, sure.
So it brought up there's like bigger forks and smaller forks, probably for all of us, and the big forks we remember better, I guess. And it's interesting to look back on the forks, and they present themselves to you, and the whole point is you actually don't know fully which direction the path is going to take. They're both covered in fog, but there's always an inclination or a sense that one is more righteous, one is more difficult, one is more dangerous. And people will say, like, when you take the red pill, you can't go back. And it's sort of, you could say the same thing once you open a door, that door can't be closed. And so when I'm listening to that poem, he's choosing the path less traveled. And for me at least, I think a lot of thought leaders in general, maybe not all leaders, maybe some leaders have to take the well-worn path. So maybe I retract that as I think about it. But the sort of people that are receptive to seeing new things, important things that the majority is missing, most of the time you present to the world as a slaughterer of sacred cows, like an iconoclast. And so you intuitively know that the path less traveled is probably more dangerous, and the question is it worth it? And again, even that question, you can't ever fully know either. You can never fully know, is it worth it to take the path less traveled, until you take it. And I just felt like for a poet, they want to reach into something archetypical that resonates with people in any time, in any century. And I think that fork in the road type of imagery, I felt myself resonating, and I feel like probably everyone here resonates with it. And for me, it's a matter of almost picking that foolish choice, that choice that other people call you crazy for, that you're going to lose your family and friends over, potentially. And anyway, so that's what I heard when I heard that poem.
I would say that those are very good observations, David. Of course, in this community, it could speak about this community. Very often, we take the path of perhaps more resistance because we know that it's going to be the true and righteous path versus the kind of path that many others take that eventually leads to ruin. Mr. Biospirit.
I was going to say something similar. In our community, we think of the two paths as being you're going to go down one road, and it's going to be the destruction of Western kind, the destruction of Western civilization, and then the other path is going to be white well-being, and that's the stark choice that we're faced with in this day and age. So I think you put it a lot more eloquently than that, David. So thank you for bringing it up. I wanted to also speak about this post by Samantha Smith, where she is using the term "the erasure of white people," and that's it's basically a rewording of white erasure, which is our terminology. She uses it twice in this post. She has over 100,000 followers, so that's absolutely amazing. I put her in our victories category earlier this morning, and not only her, but Pat Condell, who has also an immense following in the UK, used anti-white for what I believe was the first time today, and that was very well received by his followers also. So the lexicon, the terminology, the dialectic is getting out there. And when the big name, big follower count accounts start using this verbiage, then the people who are following them pick it up and start using it very, very quickly. We've seen this happen time and time again. So this is very good to see this trend happening, and I was thrilled this morning. Thanks for posting it, Tree Godfather.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I was actually going to get into that after this, but since you brought it up, it's interesting. The one place we don't see that white erasure is in anything white negative. With going back to these pictures from Canada website, uh, we don't see white erasure when it comes to wanting whites to end themselves. We see plenty of white people there, but if in the sub comment, everywhere else on the Canada website, you see plenty of non-whites. So the messaging is, to me, is pretty clear. And that kind of speaks to something else David brought up. Once you see something, it's kind of hard to unsee it. Once you open a door and you see what's inside, you can't unknow what's in that room. And I think anti-whiteism is a lot like that. Once you've learned how to spot it and see it for what it is, it's amazing how much it jumps out at you in even the most inane, subtle ways that they try to hide it, such as this made website. They're not telling white people to end themselves, but all the photos they show are of white people. So the subconscious can't help but pick up on that. Conversely, in the tourism page that I grabbed some screenshots of, it's very clear who they want, who their target audience is intended to be, and it's certainly not white people. Biospirit?
Yes, absolutely. The use of images is just as clear a communication as the spelling it out with words. So there's no ambiguity about what they're doing. They are saying to white Canadians, please die quickly so that we can bring in these non-whites and give the country away to them. That's being that is the anti-white propaganda that is being pushed all across Canada, all across America, all across every Western country. And as soon as you start seeing these images being projected at you over and over and over, once you tune yourself to being able to recognize what is being done, as you said, you cannot unsee it. It is happening in a very directed, intentional way, because that is the immoral moral imperative that runs the entire Western world. And until we get a new moral imperative, which is what we work towards, we want a new moral imperative of white well-being. And until we get that, we're going to continue seeing this kind of horrific, negative, anti-white kind of propaganda.
You'll have to pardon me, I kind of lost my train of thought. A couple of people on YouTube are saying there's no sound. I'm not quite sure why that would be, but I can't really do much about it right this second, to be honest. The old saying, picture's worth 1,000 words. And it's amazing how much they can communicate with just a picture. So the context of the picture that Andrew threw up was apparently now they can do that for minors without even needing to inform the parents, which I find that's an absolutely scary prospect. I don't know if David knows perhaps more about it than I do, because he is from Canada, but he's got his hand up. David, go ahead.
Yeah, just add on a little bit because I forgot the sort of main thing that came up with that poem. It was that you can't do both. And I think that I'm even getting chills saying that. Like with that poem, he's saying you can't take both paths. You have to take one. And so I've talked about, my hockey guys and my soccer guys in this group. And a lot of these adults who were okay with COVID lockdowns and joke about wokeism and they think they're conservatives because they don't like crime. They're talking about NHL hockey leagues and teams and stuff. And I just can't. It's like because I've picked a path, I can't get that back. I can't get excited about that. And it's like, so with that poem, it's like a lot of times I want to go back to that idyllic world where where all I cared about was following a sports team. And I can't do both. And it's like it's taken a while to come to accept that. So like in the Matrix movie, Morpheus wants to do both. He wants to go back and eat that steak. So when it as far as it comes to Made, I actually sort of opt out in following a lot of the things that like I sort of prioritize which things I follow. The one I'm most concerned about now is digital ID. That's the one that's to me the worst threat. But when it comes to Made, I didn't know that they were doing that on the website, but it doesn't surprise me. And my take on the whole Made thing is, growing up, I think a lot of us, we maybe not a lot of us. I don't want to speak for everyone, but sometimes people struggle and they go through dark times. And one of the guardrails we had was that it was very hard to kill yourself. And I think that was the right path. I think so, making it hard to kill it, making it sort of not okay, making it not sanctioned. That is like the sort of rock that you would lean up against in your dark times. That was the sort of threshold that would sort of push back at you when you're in like a depression. And my main thing about this is that they've made it too easy. But those are my thoughts.
I think I like how you worded that, David. The guardrails. I think it's a tough issue for those of us who have had to see people die horrible deaths from natural causes. But the slippery slope always is the line, the bar gets lower and lower and lower. And it becomes easier and easier. Once you justify it for one thing, you can begin to justify it for lesser and lesser things. And that, for me personally, that is the troubling part of the concept, is that once you allow it for this, to get from here to there, it just gets easier and easier. Mr. Biospirit.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I experienced this with one of my older brothers who had he had a lot of mental issues, and as he got older, he got in the grips of some very nasty women who wanted to fleece him for his his money and what he had accumulated. And there was this one woman that he was living with, and we we went out to lunch one time, and right in front of him, she is saying to me how they have all of these friends who are planning to end their lives, and that it's a good thing, and they're planning it out. And didn't I agree that that was a good thing? And I looked at her like she was absolutely nuts, and I'm looking at my brother, and he's nodding, and I'm like, what is wrong with this woman? And so we come out after lunch, and she wanted to go into a store next to the restaurant. And I immediately turned to my brother and I said, are you, excuse me, effing, are you nuts? You have got to get this woman out of your house. And, I went over and I took him out to dinner that week, and talked him into getting her out of his house, because she was trying to talk him into killing himself. Now, he got rid of her, but then there was another one that came that was a friend of this woman, and she got her fingernails into him, and actually got him to marry her. And she worked on him until he actually did kill himself. And this is part of this whole thing of making it okay within society that somehow, if you choose to end your life, that is okay. It's not okay. It is just it's immoral. It goes against our biospirit to do such a thing. And while I agree with you, Tree Godfather, there are circumstances where people are in so much pain and so much discomfort, etc., that I do agree that you can have, if you know that you are you only have a set amount of time left and you're in horrible pain, yes, you should not have to experience that and be at least given like a morphine drip kind of way out. I can see that for people who are having that kind of a problem, but it has gone way beyond that, where you have these people who prey upon our people. And when people have mental illness to begin with, and they can be talked into doing something with these people who have the sweet, syrupy voice of Satan in them, I find it absolutely reprehensible. And I even came across it in family members at my brother's memorial service, where they just kept saying that this is what he wanted. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is what he wanted. He was talked into it, and he could have been easily talked out of it. So this, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here, but this is the kind of stuff that this kind of, I'll say, anti-white propaganda leads to. It leads to our people being unnecessarily harmed.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. Actually, no, from the way I was brought up, and again, I don't really get into religion much for lots of personal reasons. But according to my upbringing, uh, you are to live your life until your natural death. Now, that came to be very much at an odds when I was a young man. I had a really close friend from school, or it was a close friend I had gone to school with. We went to high school together, and he discovered his wife was cheating on him, and I had seen him earlier that day. He was chipper, happy, and not a care in the world. Uh, I drove past his house about 5 hours later, and there was police and an ambulance and everything else out front. And a mutual friend of ours was out there, and I asked this mutual friend what happened, and he said Steve was found down in his basement. He had taken some kind of a belt and hung himself. So my opinion of suicide is a very negative one. I did watch, like I said, I watched my mother suffer for quite a while, but even she would never have gone the assisted suicide route. It was strictly her belief that this is part of life and death is part of life, and you bring it out to its natural conclusion. So, as much as that may be a tangent, perhaps from what we're talking about, it's really not. Um, you know, as I said, when you start enabling it for the most horrible of cases, it becomes easier and easier to enable it for lesser and lesser cases. And the messaging here is quite clear. If you're white, off yourself. And that is something we can't abide. That is extremely anti-white, very harmful to Western kind. It's harmful to our psyche just to see this website, even if you have absolutely no desires of checking yourself out of life. Uh, just seeing that to me is harmful, and that's my opinion anyway. David, any thoughts?
Well, and I feel like I think the word would be taboo. I think it's a good taboo to so that it's not acceptable to off yourself. But when it comes to the morality of it, again, I'm not. I almost feel like I shouldn't get too specific about my own beliefs, but it's societally, I think having it as a taboo is optimal um, for people. And recently, when we're seeing how one of the go-tos of the people in power is to I don't know how to say this word, suicide or whatever. So a lot of people are saying they're publicly saying I'm not suicidal as sort of like a preemptive affirmation because they're afraid of the powers that be taking them out. So now I think we've got the added issue that if we are feeling down and we are having, dark thoughts or whatever, like we have to be careful to share it publicly now because it will like people, there are people out there that will be like, oh, that person said they were suicidal, so we're not going to investigate whether or not it was a murder or not. So that's what comes up for me.
Um, Valid point, David. Yeah, I'll have to chew that over, but that's definitely a valid point. Ms. Rafa, good afternoon. Come on in.
Good morning from where I am. Um, in terms of the marketing material, obviously the anti-white messaging is quite clear, but just in terms of the deep rabbit hole that is assisted suicide, um, there's so much to it. Um, since uh, installing the MAID program, from what I understand, Canada now leads the world in organ donation. So the intentions that are behind the acceptance of these methods is deserves questioning. There are also some countries that either have or are moving towards assumed consent for organ harvesting, bearing in mind that when organs are harvested, um, the patient, as I understand it, must be alive. So it's quite disturbing when a person is potentially worth more dead than alive. Um, I've also heard stories and anecdotes on comments of people that work as nurses, as well as carers, who have had loved ones in hospital who have had do not resuscitate orders put on them. And the reasons why do not resuscitate orders have been put on people are quite disturbing. For example, someone might be a beloved adult child that has, an adult child that has Down syndrome, or even someone who is not elderly but presumed older, like for example over 60. These are the sorts of things that I've seen on comments for do not resuscitate orders. So all of this ties back into this Christian morality of the sanctity of life, um, in terms of how it could affect people who are white living in an anti-white world. Is what kind of protections are there around the sanctity of life of white people, and how are those barriers being eroded? That's all from me.
No, that's a very good comment. And again, kind of goes to what David was saying earlier about, we normally and traditionally have had guardrails in place for many reasons. I know I'm over 60. I don't want DNR. I'll make it publicly known right now. I do not want a DNR order. And DNR, for those who don't know, is do not resuscitate. There's also a DNI, which is do not intubate, which effectively can be the same thing. Um, it's a lot to think about for sure. When we are worth more like classic cars in a junkyard, being scrapped out for parts than we are alive, that should definitely ring alarm bells. And it seems to be happening again, very directly targeted at white people. Mr. Biospirit.
Yeah, I have my directives all written out in writing, and it's all to say I do want to be resuscitated. I do want every means done to prolong my life, because I've experienced actually several times in my life where the odds of my surviving something were so small that to make it seem like I would not survive. And if things had been those situations had happened in this new era that we're in, that Rafa was just speaking of, I might have just been organ harvest material. When I had my brain aneurysm when I was 14, I only had a 3% chance of making it through the surgery. And when you have odds like that, that's exactly what these organ harvest farms look for, is that kind of statistical bad outcome. And then they will say to the family, this is just hopeless. And the best thing that you can do is donate your loved one's body to other people. And they won't even give the possibility of a surgery or some kind of life preserving outcome as even a possibility. So I think that's a really good point to bring up that you brought up.
And going back to Samantha Smith's post here, who is making a lot of these decisions along the way when you have so much white erasure in the medical staff, in the hospital administration, who's going to be giving the advice? Is it going to be someone who's white positive and considers every white life worth keeping, or is it going to be some anti-white who feels they can help speed along the end of the white race? It's an excellent question. But just to Samantha Smith's post, I'm going to read it out here because I know it won't be on the recording. It says, "You can see the erasure of white people in British society every day. White working class boys have the lowest grades, the lowest salaries, and the lowest progression to higher education. White Irish kids in Ireland are going to schools where they're the only ones who speak English or Gaelic. In cities like London and Birmingham, you really do struggle to find a white face in the crowd. There is no special schemes for them. There are no diversity initiatives. There are no helping hands or legs up. If you're a white and British, you're on your own. A poor working class boy from a council estate Telford is not more privileged than the upper middle class daughter of Indian parents in leafy Berkshire. His skin color gives him no leg up in life, but he's belittled, excluded, and told to step aside for ethnic minorities because of his skin color. How is that fair? Your skin color doesn't open doors, doesn't protect you from hardship, it doesn't guarantee respect. Not if you're white, and yet white people are told that they experience the benefits of white privilege while being excluded from the very opportunities designed to level the playing field." She says, "I'm a mixed race woman, and yet I see the erasure of white people in British society everywhere and every day. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The hardest thing to be in Britain today is a white working class person." And the real telling thing here is, of course, there's a lot of hate in the replies for her for speaking this stuff out. And that's to be expected, I suppose. But this does highlight something that we talk about in this community. And this is why we do not, attack non-white groups as a group. We attack anti-whiteism, because just because somebody is not white does not mean that they're necessarily anti-white. And that's why we attack anti-whiteism. Just a biospirit.
Yeah, I was reminded when you were reading it that there was one thing that I really disliked about how she worded things in there, which she said white Irish, and I don't think she specifically said white British, but a lot of people are using that term also, and there is no there's all Irish people are white. So to say white Irish implies that there are some other kind of Irish people that are not white. And this is part of the anti-white narrative. This is what they did in the United States to make American no longer the same as synonymous with white, a white person. And when I read this, I think this is exactly what they're starting to do with all of our white homelands. So rather than just saying British, and then if you mean someone who's non-white, you would say whatever that they are, whether they would be Indian or Pakistani or whatever. Now it's putting it on the other foot and calling us um, somehow that there is someone else can be who we are. It's very nefarious, and I really really dislike it. So, unfortunately, that is the last thing I'm going to be able to talk about today, because I have to leave now, and I'm sorry to leave you on the spot here, Tree Godfather, with no other speakers. Hopefully, someone will jump in, and I have to go to my dentist appointment now. So I will bid you adieu.
Very well said, brother. And yeah, believe me, it was duly noted. Uh, I tend to read it as it's written, just for the record, and then of course we'll pick it apart along the way. Perhaps Julia will jump in here, and I was correct. Good afternoon, Julia. Blue Flame has requested. Good to see both of you, and have good luck at your appointment. Uh, Julia, how are you today?
Hello, everyone. I am finally doing better, so I'm very pleased about that. I was afraid I was gonna be like sick forever. Um, yeah, I missed the first part, so I'm still catching up. The last thing you've been talking about is basically made, as I understand it. I have mixed feelings about that because I kind of subscribe to the Viking notion of like, um, if I ever become like someone who is brain dead, like I do not want to be like on a machine forever. I if I ever become a burden and someone who cannot is more of a burden than I am productive, I would like to throw myself off a cliff or otherwise, um or do something of value with my death, maybe donate myself to medical research, do something risky, medically experimentally or something like that, right? um I don't want my death to be a waste if that's at all possible. But I don't want to ever be a burden, especially on uh my kin. Now I understand not everyone feels that way, but I do think that is an honorable position to take. Now who's to say that when if I'm in that position, I would be able to go through with it? I don't know. But when my late husband died, he died of a sudden heart attack, and he had another one in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. And I already knew when I found him that he was severely brain dead because his lips and fingernails were blue. So I knew that he'd been without oxygen for almost likely, very, very, very likely, for too long to not be like severely retarded, if not brain dead. And I was right. And he just declined over 3 days in the hospital. And then things just got worse and worse, and his anyway. And then I spoke to the organ donor people, and he wanted to donate, or he was an organ donor, and he always had wanted to donate his organs, and so um, that's what we did, and or what I did on his behalf, and I'm really glad about it because um, so both of his kidneys and his liver were donated, and three people um, lived on because of that. They all three of them wrote me letters, which I was very grateful to receive. So I think it can be a beautiful thing, but it has to be done when you really know what the person wants. He didn't have a will, but fortunately, we had talked about all these types of things, so I knew exactly what his wishes were, and yeah, it just underlines the importance of having those kinds of serious discussions, and having wills in place, and things like that. Um, so yeah, that's my thoughts. I don't know. Hope that's useful to someone. I'm still rebooting from my illness.
Yeah, so the morality of MAID and assisted suicide was kind of actually an aside from the main point of the post, which is far left in the jumbotron. And what caught my eye was that every image on the MAID website that it has a person on it, they all have white people. There's not one non-white person on the MAID website. And then in the sub-comment under that, you can see where I dug up pretty much every photo showing advertising for tourism in Canada had non-whites and virtually no white people. So the subconscious suggestion is pretty obvious. They want white people to die, and we are not their target audience for tourism. So that was the gist of that post. And then the second one that Biosphere had brought up, I don't know if you were here when he did that, was the post from Samantha Smith that he put in the OT chat. But go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, no, so I've read both of those. I read everything in the Jumbotron. So yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously it is targeted at white people, and I understand that it's obviously part of white erasure and anti-whiteism. I just wanted to give my personal experience and opinions on the topic. Um, more broadly. And I mean, to be fair, there are more a lot more old white people, I would assume, in Canada, but I've noticed a lot of young people in those mate ads, and the young people are of course white. So yeah, you can't even try to excuse it in terms of like the aging demographics or anything like that, which is very alarming, of course. I also, yeah, I did hear him read out the as well as read what she wrote. I don't really trust Samantha Smith. I have but I'm very happy to hear her speaking um up on behalf of white men and on using our terms like white erasure. So glad to see her doing that. But I am a little leery of her based on some other tweets I've seen of her.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to even read any of her other tweets, to be honest. Um, yeah, so how the thing came up. So I was watching Andrew Branca's stream earlier today in his members only stream, and it was a poster for MAID specifically directed at teens, telling them that they could get MAID services and not even have to notify their parents, which I found quite disturbing to say the least. I was going to go to Mr. Blue Flame, but it looks like he is connecting. So I don't know if he dropped out or not. Mr. Blue Flame? Yep, he gone. Miss Julia.
Yeah, so I'll just, fill in so that you're not talking to yourself here. Although we love to hear you talk, of course. I might be, if I'm not lucid, just let me know. Yeah, that's really alarming as well to hear that. Uh, I mean, it's like the trans stuff, right? They want to separate our children from their parents, and they and make them like wards of the state, and then they become just these anti-white automatons that are programmed and activists on part of the anti-white regime. So yeah, I don't know too much. I should know more being a Canadian citizen, but I think it's pretty similar with the trans stuff. Like you don't need um parental permission to like start taking hormones. Maybe you don't even need to get surgery. Like I know that's the case in some places. Um, yeah, it can be really dodgy, as they say.
Indeed. I see Blue Flame is back. I'm just going to read through some of the comments real quick while he gets set up. Uh, our good friend Janice writes, I've seen videos of the women who assist in these deaths from Canadian streamers. They're so gleeful about quote unquote helping people die. In the formerly sane world, they'd be featured on Snapped or some other crime drama about serial killers on Oxygen or Investigation Discovery Channel. Barcelona writes, oh my goodness, that effing anti-white evil bee, was she white? Not quite sure in response to what. He also writes, anti-whites only find anti-white results to be the only exclusive acceptable form of assisted suicides. Absolutely sickening, anti-whitely sick as F. I agree, brother. Benjamin writes, my mother-in-law passed away in June. She broke her hip and was in very bad shape. My wife and her siblings were pressured by the staff to accelerate her death using euthanasia medicine. It was a very hard situation for my wife. Benjamin, I'm very sad to hear that. I've been in similar situations several times, and I promise you I can relate. And I'll just add that I'm sorry for your loss. And Janice writes, YouTube audio isn't working. It crashed about 20 minutes in. So I did end a YouTube stream. I have no idea what happened, but I'll restream this later and we'll get it up on YouTube that way. Rafa left a couple of very informative posts. Robert writes, hello everyone for White Wellbeing. And for White Wellbeing wrote, my dentist had a bike accident, head trauma, maintained consciousness, went to hospital, emergency procedure to reduce bleeding, went into coma, told it was hopeless. Family pressured for organs while in compromised psychological state. Yeah, that's exactly when they seem to push it hardest. They consented and he was harvested that day. I don't even know what to say to that. Um, I think that that's exactly why it's a sticky wicket, because uh, it's never over till it's over. Julia.
Yeah, so regarding the organ harvesting, I will say the organ harvesting people, this happened in Massachusetts. So these were representatives that somehow bureaucrats in some way associated with the state, and they were definitely very aggressive. However, and it's alarming that I don't think they should be quite so aggressive, but um, as someone who wanted to be a doctor and was pre-med and has degrees in biology and chemistry, I know a fair bit about this stuff. And it, it it depends on the case. Every case is very much unique. Um, but in basically every case, or in many cases, let's put it that way. In many cases, the organs are just declining with over time. Um, so if the person is brain dead and just getting worse and worse, um, yeah, they can either die and their organs can be used, or they can just die. And it really, hours can make a difference, and a day can definitely make a difference. So, um, it's a tricky thing to say, like, because there is a real medical need to move quickly if you want um to use the organs. So I kind of understand where the Jews come from in in the sense that I understand the alternative perspective where you don't want the body ever mutilated. Right. So the way it works in Judaism is that you cannot be buried in a Jewish cemetery if your body has been altered in any way. So that means if you've had a tattoo, it means if you've had any of your organs donated. Um, they're pretty strict about it. I'm not even sure if I could be buried if I converted, having lost a finger in an accident. So, or most of a finger. Anyway, but it shows where that sort of humanitarian um, respect for the whole body, and not cutting it into pieces, not mutilating it, came from, which is kind of ironic considering that they also circumcise. But yeah, um, I think that in general, there's much more in the Torah, the Old Testament, that is not in support of circumcision, that speaks against it than supports it. But that's a whole nother topic. Anyway, I'm just saying it's a very nuanced topic, and I understand why sometimes there's a need to move quickly.
Mr. Blue Flame. Good afternoon to you, my brother. How are you today? All I hear is scratchy audio. I'll give you a second to see if you can troubleshoot, Mr. Blue Flame. Just give me a thumbs down if you need a few minutes, brother. Ruh-roh. Space is not going well today. All righty. Well, that was all I had thrown up here, Julia. Any other comments on Samantha Smith and that post in the OT?
Yeah, I mean, not really. As I said, I've I've I just don't trust her. But here's Blue Flame.
Fine business. Mr. Blue Flame, give it a shot. Go ahead, Blue Flame. Okie dokie. It's not going to be my day, is it? I don't have any other. Look, we'll see if I can get another topic pulled up here.
I
I throw them all in a. Go ahead.
I can ramble about the worst hotel service I ever had in my life. Um, if anyone wants to hear about that, uh, it does involve kind of white erasure. So, what happened was, I'm in Cologne right now, and there is a food convention of some sort going on. And so the city is absolutely packed. And I did not anticipate staying this long, but I got very suddenly very sick on Saturday night. And so I needed a place to stay. And then 2 hours before check in, I get a email saying that the place I'm supposed to go is not letting me check in because they're overbooked. Great. So then I scurry around looking for another place. I find another place. I go there. I check in, and as I'm checking in, um, I ask them if they have the guy who is brown. I'm pretty sure he was of Turkish descent. But he was very nice and accommodating. If the room might be available for the following 2 nights. So not just until Tuesday, but until Thursday. And because I could tell that I was really, really sick and I was not getting better very quickly. Um, and he said yes. And I said, well, should I pay now? And he said, oh, no, you can just pay when you check out on Thursday. I was like, all right. Um, and that was my first mistake. Never trust a verbal promise with a non-white. Like get it in writing, pay in advance, like have a receipt. Um he even ran a key up to my room so that my key, because it was an electronic key, of course, would still be good until through Thursday. So then at 12:30 on Tuesday, this evil twin of Merkel with like the most cold, stone-faced, evil, miserable old anti-white white woman you can imagine um tells me that uh I booked a tiny room because this is a hotel which basically has a bunch of tiny rooms and then one family suite, which I was in. And I absolutely need the space of the family suite. And I have like this whole like cleaning regimen and stuff that I did. And I had just ordered like uh, grocery bags full of stuff from delivery service. So I had everything on hand to get better. I like honey, I ordered lemons, everything organic, um, tea. I just was set up to heal. And now I have to freaking move, and I have a bunch of luggage. It's horrible. And and so I'm like, no, this is ridiculous. I explained what happened with the guy who checked me in. They're like, well, do you know his name? I'm like, well, no. Like, they never, they don't, they don't wear name tags. No one knows the name of people who check them in. Like, who notices that stuff? Also, I was sick with like an over 99 fever. So, anyway, um, so I'm sure that a mistake has been made either by the person who checked me in, or by someone else, and I'm just the brunt of the mistake is going on to me. And then they insist, and I say I'm leaving. I'm just leaving. I was able to find a different hotel um, with much better service that could take me until Saturday, so I could have time to heal. And then they say I still have to pay for the room, even though there was like just it was this was a verbal agreement. They're like, no, and I was just, I was so mad. I was full meltdown and crying. Um, First I was angry, like, and just like righteous anger. Then I went to the tears, because I was really just like, still sick, upset. I has not started feeling better yet, and yeah, completely, this woman was completely unmoved, no sympathy, and demanding that I pay for 2 more nights in the shitty room at a double the normal rate because of this stupid convention that's going on. And the only reason I paid was so I could get the hell out of there and go to another place and just lie down, and so that I had ordered bath salts and some supplements to help me get better from Amazon, and I wouldn't be able to get them in time at the new hotel, and I just picked those things up. So they at least held my mail for me. So yeah, I paid an exorbitant amount for people to hold my freaking mail. But absolutely just outrageous. And I'm thinking about, all the places I can leave reviews, and maybe I can make a whole video on this or something, because this is just like so unacceptable. And of course, the day when I was checking out, it was all white people, it was all Germans who just like pretended like that brown person didn't exist and didn't even work at the hotel. And he was nowhere to be found. So very, very much not in alignment with our Western norms. Very white erased behavior. I was not pleased. And that's my lovely rant. I hope people have been entertained.
Darling, I am laughing, and I want you to realize I am not laughing at you. I am laughing with you because I think at some point, you reach a point where you might as well laugh because crying is useless, right? I have had so many experiences. I could do 10 spaces with all of the crap that I've dealt with different hotels through the years, and always with anti-whites and white erasure being a very key component in the breakdown of my hotel experience. Everything from being disturbed by wild parties of non-white fraternities to just straight up shitheads that I've had to deal with. Because remember, part of my job used to be a lot of travel. And it's interesting because we started this space with New Hampshire Patriot asking me how I liked retirement. And I can tell you, there are a lot of things I miss about doing the work that I did. But having to deal with rental car agencies, airlines, and hotels are three of the top things that I absolutely don't miss the most, bar none. I'm going to see if Mr. Blue Flame's back and having better luck. Mr. Blue Flame, has your luck improved? You are still all scratchy. It sounds like a broken wire. If I didn't know you were on a wireless headset, I would say it sounds like a broken wire in a mic cable or something. Um, yeah, it's all scratchy. Julie, are you hearing anything different?
No, I also just hear what sounds like static or a live wire or something weird like that. Um, I have been traveling since I was 6 weeks old. I've been traveling on my own since I was the age of 4. Like I was put on a plane by myself at the age of 4 to Australia from Massachusetts. So I have a lot of experience traveling, 40 years traveling on my own. And yeah, also this is by far the most outrageous experience I've ever had. And of course, it's in the most white erased city in Germany. It's just too ridiculous. And walking around, um, I had too much stuff to carry, but I bought this I think it's called an Insta 360 camera because I do want to do on my next trip up here. Um, some walking around. It's very small, so I can just like clip it onto my corset, and then people won't even notice it. That's how small it is. It's like smaller than a credit card. Um, Although it's thicker than that, but yeah, it's tiny. And I want to just show what it's like walking around because, and especially in different areas and how it shifts when you go to the wealthy areas and just how white erased it is and how little courtesy there is anymore. So uh I lived in Manhattan for a few years, and this was back like in the early 2000s, like 2001, and then again in like 2007 to 2008. And New Yorkers are not like you know what I mean, the tree godfather. New Yorkers are not a snuggly bunch. Let's put it that way, right? So, if you stay in your lane and you don't get in their way, and everyone walks very quickly, and that's just how it is in New York City. Um, and I'm used to that. But here it's like people will like deliberately shove into you and like um totally take up the whole way more space than they need. And of course, these non-whites almost always walk in like these packs, these gangs, which is not only intimidating but just logistically extremely annoying because they just take up so much space and they have no courtesy. They don't move, and they just meander. They're just like loitering. These type of people are always just loitering everywhere. And yeah. And then of course how I see almost no white children or babies, um and yet many 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 non-white babies and children, many, and families just in general, and how many women in various modes of Islam, Muslim dress. It's just very sad. But there's not that much footage, I don't think. I don't think anyone has done a lot of footage of just what it looks like on the ground here in Cologne. So that is something I would like to do when I'm a little better.
One of the things I actually don't watch an incredible amount of YouTube, but one of the things I do like to watch now and then is on Yiz's channel when she does the morning walks because it's rural Appalachia, it's beautiful scenery, and of course she's talking about white well-being and things related to the white sympathetic sphere. But just the scenery, of course, is beautiful, and it's that way up here. Um, and I have thought often about perhaps just doing some videos now and then where uh, you can see the farms, the barns, the kind of country life that I live up here. And of course, I would want to do it in such a way that I'm not like starting at my house and doxing myself completely. It sounds like it would almost be the polar opposite, of course, of what you're doing. Um, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's good to see this is what you can have with white well-being, and this is what you have without white well-being. Uh, by the way, Blue Flame did leave a comment in the OT chat that he is without a microphone, so he is done until he gets a replacement. But yeah, that was kind of one of the video projects I'd like to do. I've actually got all the camera gear to do it. Um, Finding the time to do it tends to be more of the problem, both to shoot the videos and then the editing. And of course, for me, I do spend I spend a really, really stupendous amount of time here on X and doing the clips and stuff that I do. But um, I think some winter footage would be coming up would be nice, and because we are getting into foliage season, I think some of that would be beautiful too. But with that, I think it's probably going to be about time to pop the plug here because I'm about talked out, and this space just it's not going very well today. If this space is kind of this gone the way of your hotel stay, we're having tech issues. The YouTube stream uh, dropped out for whatever reason, but that's okay because we do meet here every day, and because we do meet here every day, we always have tomorrow to pick up where we left off. So there's always that to look forward to. Uh, what are your plans tomorrow, Julia?
I'm going to be sleeping more and healing. Well, I was able to do some walking today, so hopefully some more walking because um I always feel like exercise is good. And I spent the last few days literally just sleeping and lying in bed, mostly sleeping. So, yeah, further test of my feeling better. Um but yeah, one of the things I want to do with this new camera that I got is also film my homestead, which is in a beautiful area, very, very rural, and also kind of very much the opposite of Cologne. Um, it's still not, maybe this is because I grew up in Massachusetts, but nothing will ever match the fall foliage of the New England area. That is just forever the epitome of rural beauty, of natural beauty ever. To me personally, Appalachia comes close, and that's where I'm planning to move. But there's also a lot of beauty in the area where I live. It's just a shame that Germany's laws are so terrible and that's being so white erased. But I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the property long term, but I figure I should at least document it a little bit and show the animals and the area, and it is very beautiful. And my village is not that white erased, although it still has the house with 16 Eritreans. All men, of course, all young men. Oh, but amazingly, they have not caused too much trouble. They've been fairly well behaved. But it's wild because it's just a village of 1,000 people, uh, and they are just supported by the uh, well-meaning Catholic, vaguely Catholic inhabitants of the village.
See, the tough part for me is when I see a big piece of land like that, I want to hop on my John Deere and go farm it. It's that natural instinct that kicks in from growing up on a farm. And even though I don't have nearly that much acreage here, it's 13 and something, 13 and change. I've already staked off a 4 acre plot that is going to be next year's vegetable garden. So I'll be getting to work on that uh, as soon as as soon as the snow leaves the ground. Maybe a little before that, because I have the equipment. I can actually plow that much snow right off and get the ground bare and get it ready to work. Mr. Slots, good afternoon. How are you?
Hello. Promethean Hills. I don't know if I'm able to interrupt the topic here, but Tree Godfather can possibly just correct me after. um, I was just thinking of there was the post by one of the comedians that are popular among white sympathetics about apologizing to white negatives about something involving text messages regarding the unfortunate murder of Charlie Kirk. And it made me think about the conditions of white negativity where as a white negative you feel forced when you have this sympathy, this human sympathy for other groups experiencing harm, you end up just taking at face value if they say that there's something that harms their group, and you end up thinking, well, yeah, that's kind of anti-you in a way, but that doesn't mean we abandon our well-being. It's just part of humanity, that this is part of the conflict of humanity. That's kind of the idea you have. It's like, okay, so it's anti-you, but also we're not going to just abandon our own well-being in that way. But accepting the premise, the white negative premise of conflicting biospirits, and defining another biospirit by that conflict or that perceived injury is kind of a trap that happens. And I was thinking about how if there's an anti-white, let's say Jewish person, and the anti-white says, this promotion of your well-being is anti-Semitic. They're an anti-white Jewish person if they're saying that. But you get caught in this kind of dichotomy where if you're white negative and you don't have the lexicon and you don't have the perspective, you say, well, you're defining the anti-white is defining their group's well-being as being anti-white. And so that must mean that the non-white group itself is anti-white by nature. And they don't have the language or the concepts or the perspective with it, the time spent with the perspectives with it, to call out the other person as anti-white, or alternatively to see the option to actually engage in conversation about, well, this is anti-white, it harms our people, and not immediately go straight to, well, I guess you're defining your people as anti-white, and so you're an enemy, and therefore we need to escalate. And then what ends up happening is the white negative gets portrayed as violent, and even though they experienced, to them, an aggression, they didn't engage in the conversation to say, no, that's anti-white, and to actually open up the conversation to that. And I just wanted to get some, if it's okay to change the topic, I don't know, see if there's any other thoughts on that.
Well, to be quite honest, Sloth, this is our space, not necessarily my space. If it's a topic that you want to bring up, by all means, bring it up, bro. No, that's fine. I can tell you that I very often am guilty of not being very patient in engaging with anti-whites. Not to the point that Hans, I think, and Blue Flame come to mind, as in even Cool Papa J. They seem to have much more patience than I do, and more tact in dealing in that kind of a situation. Whereas I'm very quick to just say, well, you are anti-white, although I don't label them anti-white as a group. I will certainly say, well, this individual is anti-white, and I'm just not going to engage with them. I hit that block button like I'm playing fucking asteroids. Some days it's The post that I put up in the OT this morning, where there was all these negative comments, and Biospirit had replied to some of them, and even the ones that I replied to, I just replied anti-white detected, and then I just hit the block button, because I just have a sense that they're stuck in their position, and I'm not going to argue them out of it. I don't mind engaging more with vagues of they can be white or non-white, people that aren't necessarily anti-white explicitly. They just aren't quite sure how to, or aware of the harm that we're receiving. So I don't mind engaging with those kind of people and say, well, no, this is here. Can you see this? This is how we're being harmed, because I think that they are salvageable. People who are strictly anti-white, in my opinion, I'm not going to waste the time debating. But that's just kind of how I roll. And I don't know if that answers your question, brother, but that's the answer I can think of it off the top of my head. Go ahead.
I think that's really healthy. We don't value our own time enough when we're taught from birth that we're a guilty people. And then we encounter anti-whites in the world, and the anti-whiteism, the white guilt, the noir says we have to prove that we're even worthy of life and destiny to anti-whites around us. And it's despicable, it's deplorable, it's absolutely abhorrent. And this evolution of thought in our practice of going free is recognizing, our time has value, our people have value, and you're not going to want to waste it with an anti-white trying to convince an anti-white. If they're anti-white, they're not going to, they don't have a reason to position. They have an emotional position. The only issue with anti-whites is to have the audience recognize their deplorable behavior. And a lot of our heroes do that. They try to take up that task to expose the anti-white and the current, back and forth. And sometimes it's better to just say they're anti-white and, block them than it is to get involved with them at all. So definitely valid.
Yeah, I don't know if this sounds selfish, but I think it's not so much that I value my time more than other people in this group, for example. I think I recognize that there are people here that are way more skilled when it comes to doing exactly that, pointing out the anti-whiteism, pointing out to the audience, I guess I'm referring to. There's guys that are so much better at it than me. I do watch, I do try to learn, but sometimes I have to remember that I'm also still fairly new at all this stuff. So I don't consider myself to be up to your level. Or Julia's, Dallas's, Papa J's, Hans, Blue Flame. I don't consider myself to be on your guys' level. So I tend to just stick to the arguments that are more at my skill level, I think is probably the best way to put it. And do the things that I can do in terms of furthering white well-being. I can host a space, I can make and edit clips, I can do the live stream on YouTube. And sometimes I wish I was doing more of the swashing, and I do try to do that as well. Sometimes I just don't. Sometimes I doubt how effective I am at it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I was criticizing you immediately or anything, or valuing your time. It was more general about our people valuing their time. But yeah, and it's not really about a selfish valuing of time. It's more a reasonable valuing of time, because there is a degree of reason involved in how our people approach our well-being and destiny, and that's whether or not the actions you're taking are productive for that well-being, and that well-being includes you, that you're part of our people, our biospirit, and uh, having the tools to recognize what reasonableness looks like, what's a fruitful interaction or situation, um, is really helpful. And you already know that, but I'm not telling you that. I'm telling generally the audience that. No offense.
Absolutely no offense taken, brother. Believe me. No, I knew what you meant. So no worries there. Like I said, for me, I just that's kind of how I approach things. Uh, and I know everybody has their criteria and how they approach it. Sometimes the guys that do it well, I admire, and someday I'll be at that master level, and I'll get there. Miss Julia, what are your thoughts? Uh-oh, I think I scared Julia off.
Sorry, you didn't scare me off. I was just making tea. I've been trying to hydrate. Have I been asked a question?
Yes, I just sent it over to you for your thoughts on what Slots was talking about.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, I think um, it's very much a learning process. I don't know how long it's been for you. I think you've been fully gone free in the sense that you've read the book for much longer than I have. It hasn't even been a year for me. It's been six months about since I finished the book. So I'm still consider myself a newbie, and I agree with the Tree Godfather that um, everyone has their own approach, and I think that's really a good thing because otherwise, we get at different people that way. Different people are going to respond to different tactics. Um, one description which works for one person will not work for another, and so on. Um, and Yeah, you do get better at it. So like I have some posts where I try to mimic the style of others a little bit, like and play with it and see what I can do. Um, Depends on how much time and energy I have that day, of course, as well. But yeah, I just constantly trying to improve, um, and looking to the other heroes we have here, like Hans and Anglo-Saxon and WG, who and of course Jason, um, and even Dallas, right? Like we have a lot of great people who are really slaying in their use of the lexicon and how persuasive they can be. I don't feel I'm there yet, but I think that's okay. I'm working on getting there.
You know, I wanted to mention in terms of the lexicon and getting other bigger accounts to pick up more of the lexicon, which is something Biospirit had mentioned earlier. Um, I picked up a couple of good-sized follows and I've noticed I'm actually getting followed by accounts with as many as 500,000 followers. I know IMESU follows me. National Conservative follows me. James Kirkpatrick just started following me, and Molly Pitcher just started following me. So I view these as good opportunities to, because I know the way that X prioritizes the replies is the follow people that with common follows and stuff generally tend to be at the top. I think that's going to give me a good opportunity to get that lexicon up there in front of them in their face And the more people see that lexicon, the more they're going to pick it up. Um, I really love the 6 key concepts meme because it's got it all right there and puts it right up front. Mr. Slots.
Well, to some degree, I don't envy you, Free Godfather, because you created a pool for us. It's like just a allegory kind of thing. You created a pool for white well-being here, and then people started digging the pool deeper and deeper before you even knew where they went. I think that might be a little bit of a situation for you, as a newcomer to going free, and it's you're instead of taking it in at your own pace, you probably get doused with a bucket of water in white positivity and how to handle things. And I think it's definitely productive and great that you're bearing with it and still making these spaces, and it's admirable and great.
I appreciate the kind words, brother. I am not somebody that minds jumping in the pool with my clothes on and getting wet. I am perfectly happy to jump into things feet first without looking and just see where I land. Um, as I've said this several times, I'm very happy that so many people are taking to this space and enjoying that living hell out of it. And I personally get a lot out of this space. Um, this means a lot to me to be able to talk with all of you and to come here and we have these discussions. Um, and the person hosting is not necessarily the boss. As I said, this is our space. This is not necessarily my space. The host just kind of keeps decorum and keeps things orderly. But everybody here speaks their mind, and everybody has a slightly different way of doing things. And by sharing the ideas that we share here and little different strategies and different posts and the things that we do, I think it makes everybody more powerful. Thoughts?
I don't know if I can put Hans on the spot here. I don't know if he missed, my kind of inquiry when I jumped in. I do want to hear his opinion on what I had gone over, which is white negativity, the interactions when you encounter, and I imagine this might happen with non-whites of African descent, where a non-white anti-white is saying that something of our well-being is anti-them or anti-black, and our immediate reaction, if we're raised in a white negative environment or even an anti-white environment, is that we define the group who says it's against their well-being as that as against our own well-being, and we just take it for granted that there's some kind of biology associated that makes them inherently against us. And we don't have the tools or concepts or lexicon to recognize, no, that's an anti-white non-white, rather than it's just a non-white. And so we think, oh, so non-whites are anti-white, rather than thinking that anti-white non-white is anti-white. And in the interactions, we get stuck. As a white negative or white sympathetic, you'd end up getting stuck defining the non-white group as being anti-white rather than the individual being an anti-white non-white. And I don't know if there's any experience that Hans had with that.
Mr. Hans.
I thought about that same thing today, and I'm going to try and articulate it. So think about the fact that the Go Free practice aims to force anti-whites to reveal themselves as anti-white. And what this does for white people is it leaves them with no escape. Because you can change your religion, You can um, you can change your sexual uh, fetish, but what you can't change is you cannot change your race. So when we say someone is anti-white, of whatever race, we give them an escape. The escape is to not be anti-white, and this is why it's a moral position. But what the anti-non-whites do, they give Jews and blacks, they give them no escape. So those people, they force them to fight to the death, because there's no escape from, if you slander Jews or blacks or whatever for their birth, you leave them no escape. So that billionaire will fight to the last dollar because it's existential. It's an existential threat for him. So this is why it is so incredibly stubbornly stupid to 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 even consider that as a viable tactic, because everyone knows. I mean, Sun Tzu is basically a pamphlet that's 3 pages thick, but everyone reads that instead of von Clausewitz. But even Sun Tzu, the little midwit Chinese man, he says that the first thing you do is you weaken the alliances of your adversary. But what these anti-non-whites do is they corral them all in the same place where they can unify against us. While Jews are happy to aim friendly fire at their own people. They are happy to do that. So let them point out the anti-whiteism. Let Bill Ackman make war on DEI because he's incidentally being good for white students because DEI is white erasure. So that's my thoughts.
See, this is why I love this space. Yeah, Hans very succinctly put that very well. Mr. Slots, anything further from Hans? Did you want anything further?
So I just had some thoughts, that arose from what Hans had said, which is, that's the reason we have the lexicon, is to be able to actually form those thoughts and then speak them, and then have the capability to actually see a perspective that's different from immutable natures being connected with ideas as instinct instead of as ideas. And part of the responsibility of our people in our past is the absence of this perspective. And it's not unreasonable that it's absent in us. When we have, as a tribe, our language usually was always about our people and referenced our people. When we had tribes, we would say us, and it would mean our tribe. We wouldn't be thinking about another group or another biospirit. And so when it became a multiracial, wider race environment, the us began to reference more than just, our people. And we ended up having to universalize our language. And we, as a people, didn't have the distinction prepared to use as us as white people, and language such as anti-white, because it was just anti-us. It was not anti-white. It was not saying anti-German. You don't say anti-German to someone who's part of the German tribe, for example. You say anti-German to people outside the tribe to recruit allies. If you're German, like, let's say, way, centuries before. and you would say oh, Sweden is anti-German to like Norwegians. You would tell Norwegians that in order for them to understand, oh, so they're persecuting you. See, our people didn't do that with white well-being. They didn't have the language for it, the concepts for it, and that's what Jason brought. And it's part of our evolution of language, our evolving perspective, and being able to just have that language available to speak it and more clearly communicate that our people are being injured. So that's what I thought about that.
Mr. Hans.
Yes, language and what these it goes back to the magic of words. And in fantasy, the people who know the magic in incantations, they can bend other people to their will. But as it turns out, there isn't the magic in the incantation is not in the incantation, in the words. It works because it's a key that fits in the lock of the mind of your audience. So there is real magic there. The Go Free lexicon has real powerful magic. And today I was amused because Devin Stack made a post about you know who, and in one paragraph he makes 4 language errors that defuses his argument. Diffuse meaning it's technically true, but the people are not going to feel it. People who want, and remember the audience is not the choir that sings with you. The audience is the critical audience. That's the audience that matters. So when you're speaking, you're not speaking with your super chatters or your buddies. You're speaking with a critical audience. And the critical audience, these magic words unlock those hidden doors in their minds. It's true, it's truly magic. We are wizards, we are warlocks.
We cast the great spells that dispel the anti-whites and relegate them back to the realm of hell where they belong. Mr. Slots.
Yeah, and I would say, even if we are talking to our brothers, we're still talking to the brothers who have mean pathogens that we don't even know about. They don't speak about, and it's the same with me. I have mean pathogens I don't speak about, and we're not only talking with our brothers and sisters. We're talking about the anti-whiteism they experience in their life and what they're processing. And when we are thinking of a critical audience, we're thinking about the anti-whiteism that's bearing down on our people when we're discussing it, and we're trying to address, getting out from under it or over it, or however you want to say it, to address the harm and empower them to unlock, what they've always had, but was crushed by anti-whites.
Hans?
Yes, I think back again to a few months ago in August when I met a few of my schoolmates, and the wife of the ones we were winding down the party. All the dancing was done, and I mean, you're not really talking when the party is going, but when it gets quiet, you can start really talking. So I'm in this small group, and I explained to them how because our school is one of the few white schools left, because it managed to keep, because there's a new law that aims to force schools to be double medium, English Afrikaans. Um, and this will enable white erasure, because non-white parents don't want to send their non-white children to Afrikaans schools. They want them to get their education in English. So this is sort of a mechanism to stop white erasure. So that's my old school is one of those who still resists. So this is on everyone's mind. Um, and so I explained to them how um, we derive harmony when our surroundings reflect our internal expression, because we have a different biospirit. And the wife of one of my schoolmates, it was such an epiphany for her, because there was this thing that she already recognized in the world, but she had no way to talk about it. She had no term for the thing that she's seeing in the world. And she told me, this is incredible. And actually, I should have reiterated it because she mentioned that she can't remember how I put it, but it was and this happened several times in my personal interactions, where when this concept of biospirit, it is something that people can see in the world, but they don't have that term. And this shows how that magic, if you have the term to describe it, then the lights go on. Tick, 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 tick.
Julia.
I just have to say, Hans, you have such a way with words. I can only imagine how magical you are in Afrikaans. I'm assuming that you were speaking in Afrikaans because you are very vivid. You very evocative in the way that you describe things. It's, so yeah, I can imagine that indeed it would have been great if it had been recorded for posterity, for others to learn your magical ways. Just wanted to say that.
Well, by sheer coincidence, they're recorded now for future generations to listen back on to. Mr. Hans.
Look, Julia, I am so ashamed of my English. Um, I I remember the moment when I learned the word vegetable. I was 25 and I was surrounded by my friends, and they ridiculed me for a long time because I didn't know the word vegetable. But I can tell you, I make up for my deficiencies in English in Afrikaans, and everyone, my Afrikaans is pristine.
The trouble with English, and as a native English speaker, I'm more than happy to admit it, particularly comes with slang. Because vegetable, of course, means the food that you eat, but it's also a slang term for somebody who's not all there mentally. And we have so many words that are like that, um, that vary country to country, even among English-speaking countries. The slang varies. So I will say that your mastery of English is a whole lot better than my mastery of Afrikaans. Miss Julia.
It's so difficult to learn a language when you get older. Like the younger you are, the easier it is to learn language. That is very well documented. It happens subconsciously when we learn when we're a child. And once we're an adult, it gets just massively harder. So just props on you for learning a second language. I don't, or maybe a third. I don't know how many others you might speak. Um, and improving it and still going with it. I think your English is better than I would say the average English speakers these days, which is pretty sad, and goes to show how white a race we have. Although that's not to in any way throw shade on your English, because what I find so enchanting about the way that you speak is because it's not your native language, you come, and maybe this is just the way your mind works. It's not entirely clear to me yet. Um, I think it's partly the way your mind works, though. You come at things from a roundabout way in your description, and that makes them all the more, as I said, entertaining and amusing, endearing, all these wonderful things. So, uh, and then you have this delightful accent. So I would never want. I I can't imagine if your English gets better, Hans. It's just not fair. Like your posting is already so great. You already have such a nice way of speaking. Like it's not fair for the rest of us. You can't get any better, okay? And you're handsome and with a build like a Greek god. I mean, come on, come on. Leave some greatness for the rest of us, Hans.
Mr. Sloss.
I just wanted to say farewell because I only had this 30 minutes to jump on and I didn't want to just leave silently. So, Promethean hails to all of you.
I appreciate you jumping in quite. Feel free to come more often, brother. You know, we'd love to see you. Mr. Hans.
I just want to correct Julia. I'm a Greek statue, not a Greek god, because that would be vain.
I'm dying.
Pixar, it didn't happen.
Uh,
Music videos. We should make music videos. On Slotz's creative, well, all the creatives in our sphere. Make it happen.
No longer safe for work. Go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, if we make music videos, like, can we please have someone do the vocals? Um, because I just that vocal echo, I know no one else can hear it, but um the lyrics are so amazing. As a someone who loves poetry, sorry I missed the I'll have to catch it on the replay, the covering of Frost, but yeah, I am a great admirer of Slotz's work and others. There's a lot of great lyrics, but yeah, that vocal echo. Maybe Dallas can hear it. I don't know, because I know that she is also a musician and a more talented one than I. I believe so. Uh, m- my voice is needs a little bit of polishing. Then I could maybe try doing some vocals, but yeah, if we have anyone who is a true professional, that would be really nice. I think Fornal has done some vocals, and I really like Olivia Key's work.
Hans.
Yes, Olivia Key. I remember that very first instrumental song that she released. I still remember when I heard it first time. I mean, such a range of talents. She not only does she have the production skills, she she has she has just such a beautiful voice. It's such a shame that she fell out, or out of our community, and I think partly is because she became entangled in that white negative sphere in the UK.
Yeah, that's a shame. The you know, it's tough because I know we could be so much further if it weren't for the white negatives. Julia?
Is that what happened? I mean, I just thought, I don't know, life got busy for her or something. I didn't know that she had become entangled with uh I don't know, white negatives or something like that. I'm guessing is what from the sounds of it.
Hans?
Okay, so she had a show with Hirat, and for a short while, and then she moved to the UK. Her boyfriend was there, and then she dropped out of sight. Um, so I'm I'm leaping. I'm taking leaps and bounds here. So don't take that as fact. It was just sort of she became entangled in the WAC group, and then she went to UK. So I assume she I mean, a lot of the WAC people got doxxed, um, and she probably stepped away before it happened to her.
Julia?
I had no idea that Whack even got doxxed. So I apparently know nothing that's going on in the world. I apparently live in a cave under a rock. But that's a shame to hear that. Yeah, that's God. I mean, I I was gonna say, how does this keep happening? But yeah, we know traders anti-whites. It's just, it's so strange to me. I can't imagine doxing someone.
Hans?
Who is that nice lady who also had such a beautiful voice? She was at PA conference a few days ago. She was one of those who her life is basically destroyed now, because her real name is out there now. She was one of the whack artists that were doxxed.
I do not have
She
an
was
answer.
she was also on Jason's show. She was a guest.
I don't have an answer. Julia?
I also have no idea who you might be talking about. Like the only vocalists, if you're thinking of vocalists, I know of are Hyreth and Olivia Key. So yeah, I can't think of anyone else.
She's an older woman, single, and I think she had a song about a butterfly.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of anything. Like do you know her nationality? Like American, British, Australian?
She emigrated from the UK and then she came back. I think she went to Portugal, one of those places, and then she came back, and then she fell into the PA group.
I feel like it's scratching some like distant part of my brain, but nothing is clicking. I'm sorry. I never watched any of the wax stuff. It just which is interesting because I was in art group which was quite big and had a lot of great resources uh in my high school, which was basically like a university in its endowment and facilities and resources, etc. And I have a big appreciation of the arts in general, but there was just something about the whack group that just didn't do it for me vibe wise. I know that sounds feminine. Well, I am a woman. It sounds like it's a weak argument or like a not very descriptive, right? But I just didn't like their style, and so I never got into watching them. I was like, okay, I'm glad white people are doing this thing, but yeah, I'm not feeling, I'm not resonating with it. I'm not feeling drawn to watch or to participate. Um, And now I'm wondering if there is a reason why, if they're, yeah, if they were not, if they had not adequately gone free or something like that, if they were not adequately pristine. I don't, not trying to throw shade at all. I just, I don't know. It's just interesting.
Go ahead, Hans, because this is all nothing I know anything about.
So there are key people in the WAC group who are me-nots. They hate Jason with a passion. Some of them were ejected from our community. I know at least one. So there is they had the choice to you know to be a force for white positivity, but it seemed to me that there were two groups in WAC. The one group wanted to just make good Western art, and the other group wanted to make white negative art. And the problem with neither of these are going to help at all, because we had 2,000 years of good Western art that did not defend us against anti-whiteism. And the white negative art is just a non-starter for the critical, larger white audience. And the results of the white negative art was everyone, an association with we know how the anti-whites work. You are just loosely associated with them, and then that they like to shoot with a shotgun. They blast everyone around you. So um, Lucy Kay, does that ring a bell? I think she called herself the English butterfly.
Uh, I'm not sure. Not really, but maybe. But I wanted to respond to the art part. I mean, I agree with obviously the white negative part, and we have, again, obviously, thousands of years of superb art, and that has not stopped what is something within us that needs to be dealt with. But I do think that, and I don't think you were negating this, but I just wanted to make it clear for those listening that using the go free approach, the lexicon and the dialect in the in making good white art again can be very powerful. So and that could change the tide, especially if it becomes viral enough and catches enough people's attention, enough vagues, what or white sympathetics, then I think there could be real power in that specifically. So directed white art, not just we're making art because we're white people, we're hanging together, but very much directed intentionally, um, fighting against anti-whiteism and uniting as a people, etc.
Hans?
Yeah, we spoke about this before, and I mean, you can be very subtle, and we can take lessons from the anti-white narrative in Hollywood movies. Something that doesn't even you don't even have to use the lexicon. For instance, think about a scene in a movie where the granddaughter looks at this old black and white photo of a grandmother, and she looks just like her grandmother. And then she will ask, like, is that me, mommy? And then the mother will say, no, darling, that's your grandmother. Um, this is what happens if you choose the right man, or something that now it's becoming, now you're starting to, but anyway, the idea is I mean, you need to be creative, and you need to think hard about these things. And then you will be able to do white positive, these core ideas of us You can weave them into the story, and the more it is part of the story, the more powerful it is. I mean, just using the lexicon is good. Just casting the characters in a white positive way. That's the cheapest way to do it. You take any story, you just change the casting, and it's white positive, or at least not anti-white. But yes, it I mean, it's not easy, but it's doable, absolutely doable. And once we get the team big enough, these things will start happening.
Julia.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not definitely not saying I think it's an easy task. Certainly, such a venture, like anything, it's going to require either someone with true genius, um, or someone who's like Michelangelo or Da Vinci, who's their one of their sole passions is the pursuit of great art, or it's going to require like a movie script, many people working together, who have smaller talents, and it sounds like maybe that might be something that might happen once we get a little bit bigger, like you said. So, but yeah, I do think it is doable, and I agree. I think subtlety is better. People prefer it better. I think it sinks into the subconscious better as well. I think if you're too overt with messaging, then it gets picked up by the conscious mind, and then you start to like um, question it, and that can have, sometimes that's good, sometimes you want the conscious mind on, but you have to be aware of whether, do you want to trigger the conscious mind, or do you want to keep the viewer like in more of a passive state where they're just receiving and buying into the narrative.
Hans.
Yes, I remember watching, because sometimes you watch the people working with usability testing is when you go and see what the users do with your software and the way they fill in forms. They blast through that form so fast. All the confirmed dialogues, you can't even see what's the message. They just blast through them. So people, now what happened with marketing, and because the marketing became so predatory, people became very good at tuning out marketing. And this is why you don't want to sound like you're doing marketing or you're pushing a message, because people are so accustomed to to ignore it, without even thinking about it. If you think of, you go to a page and the sidebar starts filling up, you know how to read the article around all the ads now. So the effectiveness of these ads go down because people are being trained to ignore that stuff, and they have to become more intrusive with interstitials and interruptions to force you to. I mean, look at YouTube. They will stop the video and then play some other video, and you can't skip it. So this is what I have to do now, because people became the I don't know which part of the brain does that, but because it's not the frontal cortex that just goes and ignores all the noise, and pulls out the signal. So yes, this is why you at all costs need to avoid the perception that you are preaching or marketing to them. And this is also why these anti-white movies, many of the new anti-white movies are totally ineffective, because they have such a heavy hand that you can see what they're doing. And this makes it counter effective, because now people mock that thing and they say this is so bad. The white male is again the murderer. Big surprise. Maybe not have a murder mystery with non-whites in, because they are automatically not guilty.
You know, Hans, that kind of reminds me of something I was thinking last night. So, as I do, I don't watch a whole lot of movies, but I like older movies because there's a lot less anti-whiteism in them. Notice I said less, not none. So I was watching this movie Titanic from 1953, and speaking of subtle anti-whiteisms, this movie from 1953, and I bring this up because, of course, I would had a back and forth earlier today with a boomer blamer. It's all the boomers' fault. And of course, in 1953, the oldest boomer would have been 7. And here's this movie that has, of course, the whole Titanic disaster as the main plot, but there's a subplot in the movie about a husband and wife, and of course, they're getting divorced because that's what white people do. And they're arguing over this child, this male child. And it comes out that, well, it's not his child because, of course, she's an indiscretionate woman. Because, of course, that also is supposed to, as a subtle, suggestion that this is our biospirit, that we're not intact nuclear families. We're divorced men and women with children of mystery dads. And I wonder, 20 years ago, I probably would not have picked up on that. But of course, seeing things the way I do today with the Go Free lexicon and through the Go Free lens, I instantly recognize that as anti-white. That is a suggestion of that there's something wrong with being a nuclear family. So I just wanted to throw that in there. And this, again, is a movie from 1953, and I have seen it in even older films. The guy I was arguing with earlier says that it's all the boomers' fault, and that's where anti-whiteism started, but it started long before that. Just wanted to bring that up. Hans?
So I just recently watched a movie. It was in some Scandinavian language. It was surprisingly clean, but I'm just trying to find out. Let me just quickly check. I want you to, maybe you've watched it.
Not the Northman.
No, absolutely not. Please tell me you didn't feel like that movie.
No, I haven't seen it. I just heard it's not terrible.
So it's Riders of Justice 2021. Have anyone seen that?
No.
I cannot say that I have, no.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting movie for this late. There is, I'm interested to hear other people's opinions. I think the anti-whiteism is quite subtle, but also not that bad. Yes, Riders of Justice. Check it out, please. Let's talk about it sometime.
I have jotted it into my notebook. I will see if I can hunt it up and get my eyes on it.
Okay, yeah, I looked it up. I don't know, it doesn't really look like my kind of film. I'm very picky about what I watch. Since I didn't really grow up watching TV or film. So yeah, I don't know. Do you think it is particularly important to watch because of the way that it uses anti-whiteism, or what was it? Or you said there was a good film, a film that wasn't filled with anti-whiteism?
It's okay. They are almost yeah. Anyway, it's definitely not a movie for females. So yeah. It's a I don't know how you say in English. It's a
I do
uh,
like action films. I do really like action films. So that's
okay.
not the issue. It's not, I love action, but I really like fantasy and sci-fi. I just tend to not like, I don't like horror or like thriller stuff unless it's spy stuff. So I like James Bond, Mission Impossible, things like that.
Well, it's a memorable. It's first of all, no name actors from my point of view. I don't know any of them, um, and almost all white people in the movie, which doesn't mean it's not anti-white, but it's a there are story elements that are surprising, and so. Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised. The 2021 movie that's like that. I was surprised. I mean, it's not. Um, I'm considering where it is in my favorite list. But yes, I don't. I'm not going to say anything more.
All right. Well, I will check it out because I see it has Mads Mikkelsen in it, whom I find quite attractive. So I'll have some eye candy, and he's also a very good actor, from what I have seen. So and it has pretty good ratings, and it has your recommendation. So I will check it out, and get back to you.
I will see if I can dig it up, and if I can, I'll watch it. And then I guess we'll have a topic for a future space. With
Yeah, I
that,
wanted at one point to speak about Gattaca, but I think I want to rewatch it again, and then I don't either speak in a space about it as like a presentation, or maybe I can host some time, or write a blog post or a Twitter post on it. I was surprised by how actually, even though the premise is anti-white, I feel like it there's more in the film that is white positive than anti-white. So overall, I quite enjoyed it, and I was afraid that it was going to be ruined. And it was a film that I remembered quite liking. So I was glad not to have the memory be ruined. And once I was analyzing it through the Go Free lens, but it sounds like the Tree Godfather wants to shut it down, and I have to leave anyway. So goodbye, everyone. I will catch you tomorrow. And thank you for letting me ramble.
oh, no worries, dear. Yeah, I did have a phone call I got to return because my phone they're harassing me nonstop. So if I don't get this call returned, I'll never hear the end of it. So we'll pull the plug. We'll go over to Mr. Hans for his final thought, and then we'll do the outro.
um, Thanks everyone. This was such a nice space. Came in late. Enjoyed it. Thanks everyone. Love you.
We love you too, brother. And I really appreciate you coming up, even if you were in here late. Hey, anytime's a good time. But we'll see you tomorrow. With that, well, let me get to the outro because that's the intro. All right, let me flip it over. This has been the Wednesday edition, the wacky Wednesday edition of the Shade Tree White Wellbeing NWG space. We meet here daily at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on X. We practice the Go Free lexicon and concepts as developed by my friend Jason Kuna, Mr. No White Guilt. You can find him here on X as at No White Guilt NWG. Elsewhere is simply No White Guilt, and on the web at nowhiteguilt.org. We do have a stream tonight. It should start at about 7 o'clock. Keep an eye out for YouTube, Rumble, and anywhere else that's worth streaming, and you'll find Mr. No White Guilt there tonight. And that is 2.5 hours from now, roughly. I want to thank each and every one of the speakers and all of you who showed up to listen. You all make the space possible by bringing your diverse experience, skill sets, and intelligence here for all of us to share. Without all of your participation as speakers or listeners, it would just be me, a wacky old man rambling into space, trying to find interesting and handsome things to talk about sometimes. Thanks again. I truly appreciate you all. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening. I do love you all, and I hope to see you all tomorrow, where we continue to go free under the shade tree. Bye bye.
Good gracious, ladies and gentlemen, a most extraordinary calamity has struck. The Empire's finest invention, a miraculous machine of time itself, has fallen into the wrong hands. Now, dreadful fiends from across the ages, spiteful mutants, demons, and horrors beyond imagination, march upon our proud West. But fear not, lion-hearted adventurers, for history's most unlikely heroes have answered the call. General Cornwallis, Old Hickory himself, Andrew Jackson, the Maestro of Mayhem, Johann Sebastian Bach, and the last Queen of France, Marie Antoinette. Play in daring single player or rip-roaring local co-op. Blast monstrous bosses, conquer infernal bullet hells, unleash your arsenal of gadgets, gizmos, and glorious firepower. The fate of Western kind, and indeed the very course of history itself, lies in your hands, brave man of the West. Stand fast, stiffen that upper lip, and charge forth into the surprising adventures of Westmen! Wishlist now on Steam, before it's too late.